So imagine you're the editor-in-chief of Ladies' Home Journal in the year 2011, and you're lying in bed at night in a cold sweat because you're asked to take this very iconic traditional print brand and to continue to maintain its relevance in a very different era, in the digital era. Now, you have some ideas, but they're very bold ideas. They seem crazy, they're out of the box, and you want to make sure that you take this brand in the right direction. So what do? Well, what we did is we formed a partnership with one of the best brand consultancy firms out there, that was BAV. And BAV have been tracking brand equity measures for over 19 years. And to tell you a little bit more about the work that Ladies' Home Journal did with BAV, I'd like to introduce Seth Traum, who's the Director of Global Brand Strategy at BAV. So, Seth, it's all yours.
There you go. Thanks, Sally. So, a little bit about BAV, just as some setup so that I can actually take you through the work we did. So bear with me for a minute. Just to let you know, as Sally said, we've been in business for about 19 years, and we've been tracking brands. We track about 3,000 or so brands in a year. The power in doing that is that at the time that we started working with Meredith, we had about 20 years worth of information on Ladies' Home Journal, and we were able to leverage that to really understand how women engaged with the brand. And more importantly, we were able to create a strategy because we could see how women could engage with the brand going forward. So the way that everything works within BAV, it's pretty simple. There's 4 pillars that define brand equity. First concept is one of called energized differentiation. And it's about being different, but the right kind of different that consumers get really excited about, that has momentum behind it. As brands continue to develop, they will gain relevance, which is consumers really inviting you into their lives, making you a very important part of who they are and what they do. And increased relevance actually brings with it increased consideration and trial. And that was very important to us to focus on as we went with Ladies' Home Journal, because we wanted to get increased readership and increased trial and readership. When brands continue to develop, they move further over to the right, and brands gain esteem. And esteem is loyalty. It's respect. And it's really the scale from like to love. As consumers have more love for your brand, they will become more loyal to it. And finally, when brands build, we gain what we call knowledge in BAV, and that's in-depth understanding of a brand and everything that that brand delivers. It's not simple awareness, but it's unbelievable familiarity and understanding everything that brand brings to the table and why. So what does that mean in the context of Ladies' Home Journal? In the context of Ladies' Home Journal, it's bring something new to the table that your competitors aren't really bringing, right? And there's a lot of service and lifestyle brands or magazines out there. How do you actually bring something different? Is it the content, or is it the delivery method, or is it both? And you'll see where we settled on that shortly. Increase relevance, right? Get the women to invite you in, make you a very important part of their lives. Increase esteem, which is that loyalty towards your brand, and then want to get to know everything there is to know about your brand. If you think about how that all works, what you have at the end of the day is you have brand ambassadors, right? Because you get people who really want to know everything there is to know and become a very important part of your brand. And that's what Sally's going to circle around to later, this concept of ambassadorship and how that happened. Well, when we took a look at Ladies' Home Journal about a year and a half or so ago when we started the project, we saw this pillar pattern when you're looking at how Ladies' Home Journal stacked up. The numbers you're seeing are the percentages of other brands and how Ladies' Home Journal does in relation to those other brands. And what you see here is a pillar pattern that steps upward as you move to the right? And we have a name for that. We call that a challenge pillar pattern. But just because you're challenged doesn't mean that it's time to throw in the towel. There's a lot of ways to get past those challenges. And we immediately saw here that we needed to focus on building energized differentiation and relevance. Now, the way that we do this is underlying these pillars of brand equity. There's 48 emotional imagery attributes that we watch, and it shows us how consumers engage with a brand, how they interact with a brand, what they believe a brand to be. And so what we did in our work is we looked to see how does Ladies' Home Journal do, but more important, we built a landscape. And so the landscape is here. It's a little tough to read. It's a little small. But what we found is that the brands tended to cluster into different territories here. The only brand that we actually show in terms of the cluster is Ladies' Home Journal, just because there's so many brands that it's tough to read. But there are about 20 or so brands that inform this map. And you see here that there's clusters where all the brands gathered together. There's service lifestyle territory. There's celebrity endorsement, high fashion, trend watching. And we saw that there was a lot of fragmentation. What we also saw is that there's unclaimed opportunity. There's this whole territory right now that consumers didn't believe any brand rightfully claimed. right? And this is when we're looking at women here, right? And we're looking at women's magazines. So right now, there's this gap that no brand seems to be filling. How do we actually find a way to fill that gap? Here's a little bit of a close-up, and you can see in that unclaimed opportunity territory that there's a lot of really attractive attributes, right? There's things like innovative, there's things like progressive. You also have something like social, right? That's exactly why we're all here today, and that's going to be a big component that Sally circles back to. And so the next step that we took is we did a stakeholder workshop, and we sat down with all these findings that we had, and we said, let's set about and establish a clear direction for the brand. Now, the good thing about this workshop is that we had representatives from editorial, obviously Sally, we had publishing, we had circulation, we had research, we had us, and the key thing is that we had the decision makers at the table. And this wasn't just a meeting to talk about what we could do. There was supposed to be significant action to come out of this meeting, and we had the right stakeholders involved to actually take that action, people that had the ability to make these changes that we were going to come up with. And we created exercises around these attributes that we wanted the brand to become. But we wanted to have those brands become those attributes grounded in what the brand already was. And when we took a look at what became our universe of 6 target attributes, if we build emotional connections in this way, we will increase our energized differentiation and, very importantly, our relevance. This is what we wanted to build on. And so if you look at the bottom half of this page, you see what we call developmental. These are attributes where Ladies Home Journal got some credit, but the competition did a little bit better. The top half, though, we saw Ladies Home Journal already received a lot of credit from women on these particular attributes. And these are attributes on which we could build to build that energized differentiation and relevance. Social, authentic, fun, intelligent. And so if we take this universe of these 6 emotional imagery attributes, the way we want women to connect to this brand in a special way, that's what's going to rebuild the brand equity to get the brand back towards a leadership position. And so what we were left with was this ultimate universe of 6 attributes. And when we handed that off to Sally's team, this was really what gave them room to run and what they started to build everything on. Now I'll turn back to Sally.
Okay, thanks. Sure.